My younger brother Ralph has always been the smart one in the family. He's a high school senior now, and there's no question that he's going to be the valedictorian. But while he's got the brains, he's also a bit naive when it comes to people, especially when it comes to girls. So, when he called me out of the blue, practically buzzing with excitement, I was curious. He told me that a girl, a popular beautiful girl named Emma, had just done this big promposal for him in front of everyone at school. He said he was hesitant, but he said yes. I could hear the excitement in his voice, and I wanted to be happy for him, but something about it didn't sit right with me. I hesitantly offered my congratulations, but as soon as we hung up, I started to feel uneasy. Ralph is an amazing guy, but he's not exactly the type that girls like Emma usually go for. I didn't want to rain on his parade, so I kept my concerns to myself. But the more I thought about it, the more it bugged me, so I reached out to a few friends back home to see if they knew anything. One of them, Sam, had some news that made my blood run cold. He said there were rumors going around school that something was off about Emma's promposal. Sam did some digging and found out that Emma never actually planned to go to prom with Ralph. It was all a setup, a cruel joke. She was planning to stand him up on prom night to humiliate him in front of everyone as payback for getting the valedictorian spot over her. When Sam told me this, I was furious. Ralph had always been kind and respectful, and the idea of him being humiliated like that made my blood boil. I knew I had to do something, but I couldn't just tell Ralph what I'd learned. He wouldn't believe me, and even if he did, he'd be devastated. No, I had to find a way to turn the tables on Emma without Ralph getting hurt in the process. I spent the next few days coming up with a plan. It wasn't easy, but I finally settled on something that would give Emma a taste of her own medicine. First, I called Ralph and asked him about his prom plans. He was still excited, talking about how he couldn't believe someone like Emma would want to go with him. I played along, asking him if he'd gotten his tux yet, and he said he hadn't. That was perfect. It meant I could tweak my plan a bit. I offered to help him pick out his tux, and he happily agreed. The weekend before prom, I drove home and took him shopping. While we were out, I made sure to casually bring up the idea of getting a limo. I knew Ralph wouldn't think twice about it, he was too focused on impressing Emma. I made arrangements for a limo to pick Ralph up on prom night, but I made sure it wouldn't show up at his house. Instead, I had it pick him up at a friend's house, just in case Emma had spies checking in on him. I also made sure the limo would take him to a nice restaurant first, giving him the full prom experience. But that wasn't all. I made a few calls and found out where Emma was planning to be on prom night, at a party with her friends, waiting to hear about Ralph's humiliation. I knew what I had to do. On the night of prom, Ralph was a bundle of nerves, but he looked great in his tux. The limo showed up right on time, and I watched as he climbed in, excited but still a little unsure. I wished him luck and told him to have a great time. He had no idea what was really going on. After Ralph left, I drove to the party where Emma was supposed to be. I parked down the street and waited. It didn't take long for Emma to show up, dressed in a killer dress but obviously not planning to go to prom. She was all smiles, clearly pleased with herself. I waited until she was inside before I made my move. I walked up to the house and knocked on the door. One of Emma's friends answered, and when she saw me, she looked confused. "Is Emma here?" I asked, keeping my tone casual. The girl nodded, still confused, and called for Emma. When Emma came to the door and saw me standing there, her smile faltered. "What are you doing here?" she asked, trying to keep her cool. I gave her a small smile. "Just wanted to see if you were ready for prom. Ralph's waiting for you." Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone and showed her a picture of Ralph, standing outside the restaurant in his tux, looking every bit the handsome gentleman. "He's waiting for you at the restaurant. He's so excited, Emma." Emma stammered, trying to come up with an excuse, but I could see the panic in her eyes. She knew her plan had backfired, and there was nothing she could do about it. She had told everyone that Ralph canceled at the last minute. Now everyone knew she'd lied. "I guess you're not going then," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Too bad. He really went all out for you." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, speechless. As I drove away, I couldn't help but smile. Ralph would never know what Emma had planned for him, and she wouldn't get the satisfaction of humiliating him. Instead, she'd have to live with the knowledge that her plan had failed, and that she'd been outsmarted by the very person she tried to hurt. When Ralph went in the restaurant, he found his good friend Samantha waiting. She was wearing a prom dress too, and she was alone. She'd chosen to go alone, fully confident in herself. I knew she'd always had a secret crush on Ralph, but she didn't feel like Ralph was ready to be receptive to her yet. But when his prom date didn't show up to the restaurant, they ended up having dinner together. They laughed and talked. When it was time to go to the prom, he invited her to ride with him since she was in her car and he was alone. They danced, talked, and had a great time. They're going out again next week. After all this, I reached out to the scholarship department at Ralph's school and explained what had happened with Emma. She had received a full ride scholarship to a school of her choice, and they revoked the offer after finding out about her cruel intentions. Now here I am, wondering if I did the right thing. I mean, sure, I manipulated the situation, but it was to protect my brother from getting hurt. I didn't want him to go through that kind of humiliation, especially not when he was so excited about the whole thing. But part of me wonders if I went too far. Should I have just told him the truth? Should I have let him handle it on his own? I don't know. All I know is that I couldn't stand by and let someone hurt my brother like that. So, am I the asshole for turning the tables on Emma, or did she get exactly what she deserved?